Hi everyone, my name is Dan, and I'm a software engineer from China. Today, I want to share my journey of learning English, how it started, the challenges I faced, and why it has become such an important part of my life. For me, learning English started as a necessity. In the tech world, English is everywhere. Whether it's reading documentation, attending conferences, or collaborating with international teams. At first, I just wanted to improve my skills to advance my career. But over time, I realized that learning English is not just about work, it's also about growth, both professionally and personally. I still remember the first time I tried to read an article in English about programming. It was full of technical terms and unfamiliar words, and it took me hours to understand even half of it. I felt frustrated, but I also felt determined. I told myself, if I want to succeed in this field, I need to overcome this challenge. So, I started small. I began by reading short tech blogs in English, watching tutorials on YouTube, and using subtitles to understand what the speakers were saying. Slowly, it became easier. I started to recognize patterns, remember new words, and even pick up on the way sentences are structured in English. One thing that helped me a lot was using English every day. I set a rule for myself. Whenever I searched for coding solutions online, I would only use English keywords. At first, it was slow, but it forced me to practice. Now, it's become second nature. Another thing that made a big difference was joining online communities. Platforms like GitHub, Stack Overflow, and Reddit are great for learning not just programming but also English. I started asking questions, leaving comments, and even sharing my own code in English. It was scary at first. I worried about making mistakes, but I realized that people care more about your ideas than your grammar. One of the biggest challenges I faced was speaking. As a software engineer, I don't have many opportunities to speak English in my daily work. Writing and reading are one thing, but speaking is another. It's like a muscle, you have to use it, or it won't get stronger. To practice, I started joining virtual meetups for developers. At first, I was nervous. I worried about my pronunciation and whether people would understand me. But I reminded myself that everyone is there to learn and share. The more I spoke, the more confident I became. One turning point for me was attending an international tech conference. I had to give a presentation in English about a project I worked on. I spent weeks preparing, practicing every word and every slide. When the day came, I was nervous, but I did it. And when people came up to me afterward to ask questions and discuss ideas, it felt amazing. That experience showed me that English is not just a tool, it's a bridge that connects people. Learning English has also opened up new opportunities outside of work. I've been able to watch movies, read books, and listen to podcasts that I wouldn't have been able to enjoy otherwise. One of my favorite podcasts is The Daily by the New York Times. It helps me improve my listening skills while staying informed about global events. For anyone learning English, my advice is to find a method that works for you. If you love technology like me, start with tech blogs, videos, or even coding tutorials in English. If you're passionate about something else, like sports, music, or cooking, use that as your entry point. Learning is much easier when you're genuinely interested in the content. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. I've made plenty, both in writing and speaking. But each mistake is an opportunity to learn. I like to think of it as debugging in programming. Every time you fix a mistake, your code, or your English, gets better. I have my own learning journal. Every day, I write down one new English word or phrase I've learned and how I can use it. For example, yesterday I learned the phrase, trial and error, which perfectly describes both programming and learning English. To me, learning English is like building software. It's not perfect at first, but with time, effort, and a lot of testing, it improves. And just like software, it opens up endless possibilities once it's working. So, wherever you are in your English journey, keep going. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it. Remember, every word you learn, every sentence you speak, brings you one step closer to your goals. Thank you for listening to my story. If you're learning English, I'd love to hear about your experience in the comments. Let's inspire each other to keep improving.